All right, and now the moment you've all been waiting for, I'm sure, the biometric scanner presentation. For those of you who don't know, those of you who aren't part of the parental part of the district, I sent out a few emails inviting everybody to hear about the presentation tonight. And then after the presentation, I'll be here for a while at the end of the meeting or throughout the week or whatever. If you have any follow-up questions or whatever it is, you can please either see me or your building principal. But I think it's important that all of my administrators here, every one of the teachers that I interact with, some on a daily basis, know that transparency is extremely important to me. So, and I'm also the type of person that, you know, there's absolutely nothing to hide. So I'm here to give you some background on what happened, how we got here today, and actually discuss. There's a handout up here which you can take on the way out too if you have any questions. With regard to some of the things that are out there, some of the questions that the board members have given me, the board members have been involved in this when some of the first concerns came up this week. This is an administrative decision, which really isn't a decision of the whole board. That's not how it works. The reason why this came into effect is because in a recent audit, and some of you in this room may have been part of that audit, we were in arrears of close to $200,000 in lunch monies that we have to recoup from parents, $200,000. That means that $200,000 of lunch money that we needed to recoup came out of your tax dollars. Okay, I don't think anybody wants to hear that, especially as a superintendent. It was over the past few years, and what was happening was basically that students were either losing cards were being stolen, lunch cards. There was a major issue with the lunch card program. Now, many of the parents that I spoke to personally about this, when we sent the letter out, maybe you are one of those parents, and we said you owe $1,000. Okay, that was partly the district's fault at the time because we had something at the time where we didn't deny any food to any student who wanted food. Now, that doesn't mean that a student can't have a basic lunch, cheese sandwich, no more peanut butter, a jelly sandwich. I know that sounds, that sounds a little crude, but that's an actual lunch with of course, juice and an apple or something like that. What we were doing as a district was, if a student came up to the line with food, French fries, hamburger, everything, we were providing that meal because we are 100% against what's known as food shaming. I don't know if you've heard that before, but that means the kid goes up with a whole bunch of food, and the man or woman at the line who's working the line says, "Sorry, dear, you don't have enough food on your card because your mother or father didn't put money on your card. We'll put that food back, or we have to take that food, and now here's a cheese sandwich." And everybody goes, "Ha ha 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 ha!" We weren't for that. The problem is when the audit came in and we had to recoup $200,000, nearly almost $2,000 in taxpayer money to pay for those meals. The audit came back with a corrective action. We need some kind of corrective action, and the corrective action plan that was kind of preempted in conjunction with the business department and the food service, which is something that a lot of schools are moving to now, are these scanners. So basically, the plan was to roll these out, and then next year with a full rollout would be to eliminate the food shaming piece. So now this sounds a little complicated, but I'm going to go through it step by step, which is what the idea was. So as the full program is laid out, what's hopefully going to happen next year, and it takes a lot more personnel, so we have to hire a lot more personnel for this in all the buildings. The student comes up to the scanner, places his or her fingerprint on the scanner, and then there's someone there to tell them that they have enough money on their card, that they can go into the line now. Hi, yes, enjoy your meal. Okay, the student doesn't have enough money on his or her card, then there will be some kind of protocol where we make sure the student gets a meal, wherever the meal is decided by the district at the time, so that they are not food shamed. Then they go to a second line and pay for the meal. Same thing. Okay, so what this eliminates now is any cards being stolen, any cards where your children sometimes, I have 4 children myself. I have one child who had a stolen card once, and that caused an issue for me. And I have an older daughter who buys a lot of food for people, okay, that I didn't know about, all right? And most of these people are, somehow they like cookies and, right, and soda and stuff like that. So that kind of negates a lot of those issues. I can't tell you how many conversations I had over the audit with parents that refused to pay the arrears because it couldn't be their son. It couldn't be my daughter, no way. All right, and I'm not saying it's any of your children, but it was if you think about $200,000 and the Bush Law Group is helping us try to recuperate some of that money, It's not a good thing. We're not talking about those students who are on free lunch, okay? Except for those parents who just didn't fill out the paperwork, okay? The original system of numbers or cards usually in most districts came into effect because only students, when I first started back in the 90s, if you were on free and reduced lunch, you were the only kid that got a card, right? So everybody was like, oh, you're poor, you got a card, right? So we got rid of that, and now everybody gets a card, right? So we kind of progressed through that. Whether you agree with it or not, it's the progression of how the districts work now. Our district is close to, if not over now, 60% free and reduced lunch. All right, people don't know that. Some people think it's Belleville back 20 years ago. It's not. It's a different time. The economy was tight for a long time. We have parents that need assistance. There's nothing wrong with that. And we'd like to provide that. For all of you in district, we've already put together a program last year with a free breakfast. Whether you're free reduced lunch or not, we found a way to make sure everybody gets breakfast. So as we move forward with that, the audit recommendation is kind of in limbo where it came out. Well, I'll let Mr. Egan talk about that. Because the audit report's delayed a little bit for state reasons, not our reasons. But the report will have findings on there because not only this arrears, but we didn't have a process in place. So in talking with the business department, this was the best plan for us to eliminate all of that. The business department, in conjunction with the food service, went out and with Pay Schools, which is the app that you go and you load your stuff up onto, basically said the scanner is the way to go. There's no recognition. There's no nobody will be able to share numbers or cards or any of that. So we purchased the scanners, and they were rolled out several weeks ago in several schools to try to pilot. And now, again, playing sports in college, and so I played football in college. I used to hate when the coaches would come the next day and they would kill us for film, right? And now I'm playing Monday morning quarterback myself, saying that to understand what some of the parents were feeling, with the minority of the parents at the time, we should have sent this presentation out prior. So take full responsibility for that. Although I'm not responsible, I am to blame because I am the boss. It's fully my consideration. So that's why we're here tonight, to basically try to alleviate you from some of your concerns, some of the things I was hearing, and some of the reasons why we had to go into that. Again, the direction we were going was for no other reason but to really save your tax dollars, save your own money. Again, I can't tell you the numerous parents that are refusing to pay this, and that's a major issue. That's the law firm's involved now, and I don't know what to say to a parent when they said, my kid said he didn't buy 10 hamburgers. I don't know what to tell you. Right, your kid maybe paid, it's the same thing when students get locker numbers, and somebody steals something in their locker, so this is definitely a way to negate all that. So on here is just, I know you can't really see it too big here, but I do have the scanner here as well. Basically, if you haven't seen it yet or Googled it or whatever, it's just a little scanner here. It does not take a full fingerprint. Okay, this is used, our municipality uses it here, something similar to this. Most hospitals use it now. If you go to like Gloria Children's Hospital or some other hospitals, your children will have things scanned in order to prevent insurance fraud. There's a bunch of things using for the biometric scanners now. If you've ever been to Disney, you can't get into Disney without putting your finger on this, okay? So what it basically does is it just takes a few points of the finger, not the whole fingerprint. Takes 4 or 5 points, and then it generates a unique numeric code or alphanumeric code for each child. So because of that print, because of that print, there's an alphanumeric code, and then the next time that your child goes and does the print, that code pops up, okay? And that's linked only to your account with Pay Schools. Okay? So the information you've already uploaded to your computer, from your computer, is the only information that is accessed by that print, okay? Or that biometric print, okay? So there is nothing else on there. And I will say this, and I'm going to say, and I talked to council about this, so I'm going to say it just to put you at ease, but I don't mean to alarm you, but I hope it doesn't. But I'll say I, meaning me, because again, I'm the person that's ultimately responsible for everything that happens here, okay? I am responsible for information from you that you have given us that is some incredible information, right? Social security numbers, deeds to houses, right? There's a lot of information that you have provided as a district just to register your student here, okay? That is completely secure in certain servers, and when we have certain contingency plans, so that all of that is secure. None of that is what, okay? So if that's what you should be concerned with, in my opinion as a parent, none of that is linked to any of this. This is a separate account that you have already been using. You have already been using this account when you uploaded your Visa card or however you're paying your stuff. My wife and I, when we do stuff online, we use a totally different account, a totally different card that we have. Okay? So if you haven't done that, maybe that's something you should consider as well. All right? But all this is when you put up $20 and someone pays for it, you pay for a burger or whatever it is, that's all this is linked to. Okay? This in no way is tracking any information except how much money you are spending on food. This will also help us down the road so you can see your child's health patterns. I mean, I do that often in my district, so we're trying to get that here too a little bit better. We are in no way tracking any type of immigration patterns here, because I heard that rumor, which I'm very taken aback by, and maybe we can mention that. So if anyone has an issue with that, they can come and see me directly after the meeting, please. All right? That's not what this is about. All right? Again, this is a corrective action to basically ensure that the monies that you are sending with your children are going to your children. All right? If you are someone in this room who has gotten a letter from me and you did a lot on the card and you didn't know why, you know exactly why this is happening. And that's why a lot of those parents did respond to this and thanked us for this. Because again, is it their child's fault? Is it not? I don't know. You know, you talk to your children sometimes, you know, it's like I do if they're lying or not or whatever it is. But at the same point, you know, I had a parent who was $1,000 in arrears. This was after letters. And again, that whole process stops now. Your son and daughter is not going to just keep getting the food. Now, I know the board doesn't agree with me on that. They would rather your child get a full meal and us go through this every year. But I don't think that the state monitor is going to agree with that. And I definitely know the federal government's not going to agree with that. Okay, so I appreciate the board's feeling on that because I understand it as an educator. I understand that we want to, you know, you deserve the French fries. But at the same point, there's a process to get to those French fries and us to help you and assist you. You have to communicate. So that's the only reason why this came in. I will say it one more time for the record. Yes, for the record, this should have been rolled out a different way. I take responsibility. I apologize for that. Hindsight's 20/20. I mean, all I can really do is apologize. We stopped the program until we had this meeting today, but I will say that the program will continue with corrective action. That's why, if you'd like to opt out from the program, that's fine. But then, again, and this is absolutely no threat to you, you run the risk of someone taking your child's card, and then there's nothing else you can do except collect that money from you. Okay? Is it a systematic problem here? It absolutely is. Right? And that's why we have to correct it. $200,000 in arrears is not just somebody saying, oh, yeah, it's systematically, and it's not just at the high school, it's the grammar schools. It's a lot of the grammar schools, believe it or not. The high school is more, I'll buy you something, you know, oh, your girlfriend gives your girlfriend your card number, she tells three of her friends, stuff like that. Okay, and that's something that this will stop too. Unfortunately, we are in a situation where it's a lot. Okay, again, I'm open after a meeting for any questions or again emails. I've answered every email I could. I've had parent meetings with anyone who wants to want to talk to me. I understand the sensitivity of this, so please reach out and opt out if you like. Okay. Thank you for listening. There are some more handouts up here if you want to take this home. Happy holidays and progress. Thank you.
If you have any questions or whatever, Dr. Tomoko will take your question. Thank you. This is just on the subject that Dr. Tomoko just addressed in the community.
Yes, good evening, Board of Education members and okay. As parents of students here at the high school, it has come to our attention, students were presented with information that they would not be allowed to eat unless they first allow themselves to be finger scanned. Shortly thereafter, Dr. Tomoko's letter was sent to parents advising that the district had, quote, began using the biometric system in the school's attempt to provide our students, quote, an appropriate lunch experience, unquote. Although Dr. Tomoko states that the biometric finger system does not record students' fingerprints, but scans, quote, certain points of the finger, unquote, which is stored in their server, In stating such minimizes the potential impact that such a personal, unique identifier has and creates the likely scenario which can confuse parents as to the semantics of what is and is not a fingerprint. Granted, the biometric fingerprinting scanning is not our traditional dusty powder ink to paper system. But let's be realistic. Biometric finger scanning is indeed our modern day digital age version of a fingerprint. Finger scanning, which captures flat images of the center of the finger and only requires a minimum of a unique identifying points in order to make a perfect match of a specific individual, is being increasingly used by government and school systems when hiring adults, by financial institutions to track employees' attendance, etc., to state a few. Research has shown that biometric finger scanning offers improvement over ink and paper imaging. A complete set of finger scans of a person can easily copy and transmit over computer networks. In addition, computers can quickly analyze finger scan and compare it with thousands of other finger scans, as well as with fingerprints obtained by traditional means. This greatly speeds up the process for searching finger images records in criminal investigations. State law restricting biometric collection has hindered fingerprinting scanning tools in some states. In 2008, Illinois passed a law that required companies to let users know when biometric identifiers are collected and how they will be used. It is also necessary to obtain consent from users before collecting and storing that data. In 2009, Texas also passed a similar law. In recent years, many other states, including New Jersey, as early as this year, has introduced legislation that would provide protections for biometric data due to its potential for misuse and potential hacking. Although these proposals have yet to be enacted, this demonstrates the trend among states to provide protection and regulation for the collection of biometric data. While with daily headlines reporting on large-scale data breaches, increasing public concerns about the privacy and the security of biometric data, then why, do I ask, is the Belleville School District rushing, specifically by not communicating with parents, to first provide specifics to the biometric system, to seek consent from parents before collecting the biometric data of the younger children, in order to provide an appropriate lunch experience? When there is such a great risk for possible hacking and misuse of our children's very private and personal information for the sake of speeding up the lunch line, per the memo that we received, versus addressing the poor tracking food system on a timely manner. Thank you.
Good evening, panel. My name is Nelsie Piano. Hello, everyone. She pretty much recapped what I wanted to say. Mr. Tomoko, I appreciate you mentioning that you were transparent and that you wanted to address the situation because most parents were a little, the entire approach was taken back because no one was notified. And the email came the same day that the fingerprints were taken. So you mentioned that typically the board are not the ones that are, they are not the ones to make a decision, it's the administration. So you had a conversation with them, but not the board or the trustee. So that's what I was a little confused about, because I thought that usually when it comes to Board of Education and any protocols, that every member is part of this process. That's my question.
My main concern is this. Well, I have two concerns. I'll make it quick. I know you said it. Number one, my son doesn't eat school lunch here. He eats breakfast before he comes to school, and he eats lunch when he gets home. Do the students who do not participate in the lunch program or breakfast program, do they still have to have their fingerprint scanned, considering the fact that for a baseline print, basically? Because otherwise, how do you know what finger belongs to whom? And second of all, you're saying, you gave an example of, the first one, you gave an example of maybe one of your older daughters being very gracious and buying lunch for other people. And then, I'm assuming, or I don't know, what stops this finger scans from that happening?
Right.
So how is it an improvement to just a basic barcode on your ID?
Donna Compton, School 5. I'm going to opt to get my daughter off this. Will her fingerprint be removed from the system entirely?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lenny Averill, School 10, with my property, so I've got a couple questions I guess we'll answer later. I want to know how many student fingerprints are currently in the system, how many are scanned, what schools are scanned, if you're planning on scanning every school, every student. Why was consent not sought beforehand? I don't know if there's a justification for that. I know you say corrective action to ensure monies are paid. Mismanagement shouldn't be a justification. Obviously, other schools don't have fingerprints and they manage it. So I think mismanagement is somewhere else. I don't think that's a proper justification. But anyways, why is it an opt-out rather than an opt-in? That's another question. Parents should opt in and consent, or nobody does it. Not the opposite. Kind of, it's a board decision. Shouldn't be a dictatorship, right? Let's do it, and then Monday morning quarterback it. That's not the way the law works. I can't search a house and then apply for a warrant after I find it, right? The lawyer here, we said we're going to. Okay, and the board attorney. Those are my questions. Thank you.
And I totally disagree with this new thing that you all brought in, and you spoke about kids buying lunch for other people, but I also work in the school, and I'm in the lunchroom as well. And I have seen personally the janitors are taking lunch, they're not paying for it. Some of the aides are taking lunch, they're paying for it. So the kids are not totally to be blamed. And I too will totally opt, and my 4 kids will be out of this.
I know that Dr. Tomoko, you had said that you guys were going to fix this corrective, as part of this corrective behavior was to hire new personnel, which means that you would need to hire new personnel in pretty much every single school in the district, correct? Okay, and that means that you would now need to pay these new personnel salaries, correct? So how is that saving taxpayers' money when it's just gonna go to the salaries? Why not pay for kids' food anyways?
I have 3 kids in this particular district, I should say. And first of all, I want to say I totally disagree with the way this was presented. Nobody was informed of the fact that this was actually taking place. I don't understand how is it that the board had no say in this particular situation. I know a parent did say, how are we supposed to be assured that our kids' fingerprints are being removed? Or how are we going to know for a fact that this is actually going to take place? Okay? And again, my kids don't eat lunch in school, so I don't understand why this had to happen. My daughter was the one who actually told me. My little one, it seemed like this was rolled out to the kids, the little kids, not the bigger kids. Somehow, some way, why, I don't understand. So, I mean, everybody deserves an explanation. Just the fact for you to stand here and say, well, I'm sorry, I apologize, I don't think it's enough. There has to be something more than to say, I am sorry.
My concern is not so much, obviously, the fingerprinting, but my son has special needs, and his account was taken advantage of and compromised in a period of 2 different schools, between school 7 and school 8. And I think that that's the topic that needs to be addressed even further also. If he puts his fingerprint down, he was buying lunch in excess of hamburgers, cheeseburgers, whatever, for a bunch of people when he doesn't even eat the school lunch. So that's what I wanted to bring to the attention of the board, not just the fingerprinting, which my husband and I don't particularly care for, but the fact that someone that doesn't even eat a school lunch is being brought up and serviced to take lunch for a series of children, whether it's bullying, whatever you want to call it, being kind. He's a generous kid, but if he has access to just stick his finger down instead of putting a number or card in, it's going to be that much easier for someone who doesn't have the mental capacity to realize that they're writing a bill. I dealt with Ms. Castro Giovanni. I paid a bill for $200. That was not my son's lunches. I didn't want any problems. I didn't want to have to deal with anything that interferes with the Board of Education. So just so you know, I was fully aware of the fact that, you know, things were being done on his account, but I didn't want to have any headaches. Thank you for the reduction of $30 that you guys have granted me. But that bill is paid in full. I just hope that moving forward, our special needs population is taken into consideration and that those children are especially cared for with lunch lines, because at day's end, they might not be aware of what just putting a figure down might do. Thank you.
My question revolves around in this day and age, anything that's connected to the internet is hackable. So for them to stand up here and say that it's a secure server, it's got a false sense of security that we don't live under. So what safeguards are being put around their information? Who has access to that information? Not only within the school, but third-party companies that we have access to. What is the life cycle of that information as well? So these things, what's the turnaround time for that information?
I just want to really understand that I want my children to know that they can say no. I want my children to know that if someone comes up to them and says, we need to take your fingerprints, we need to take whatever, we need to know where you live, they need to know that they can say no. And when their school teachers come up to them and say, we need your fingerprint, I mean, I was raised, I'm Puerto Rican, I was raised in the Bronx, and I know well enough to say no. You know, there were times when I was a kid that they said, we need you for a lineup. And thank God I said no, because I thought we'd be doing 30 years like some of my friends. And they need to know they can say no. And that's really almost like a violation of how you guys can help me out. It seems like a violation of their fundamental rights that they didn't get a consent. And you mentioned Disney, just went, you're 100% right, but I consented to Disney. I paid a whole lot of money to give them my fingerprint. Oh yeah, you know what, the finger thing stopped working every other time. So that's just to give you a heads up. You know, you're gonna get these snotty fingers on that thing. That's a whole nother. But thank you very much.
I actually don't have a problem with it. We put our fingerprints on everything nowadays. My kids' fingerprints are on my phones, my husband's phones, laptops, iPads. We go to Six Flags. That's the first thing that we have to do. So I don't have a problem with it. And what I did have an issue with is how it's rolled out. And I do appreciate your apology for it. Like you said, it's Monday morning now, so it's kind of, but I do appreciate the apology. My silly concern is the whole snotty finger thing. Because, somebody comes up and then my kid's gonna touch it and then he's gonna eat lunch with that same, germs on that. So that's really my concern. Everything else, I think, the information that we upload to PaySchool, it's on the same server, correct? So if it was hacked on PaySchool before that, it's still hackable now. So it's the same server, correct? And it hasn't been hacked since we've got it. Thank you.
Okay, Mike Mignon, Belleville Education Association president. So I just want to respond to one parent who actually spoke about the fact that the teachers are bringing down the fingerprinted. Just want to make this known that this is a topic of conversation of many of our listening hours, probably every single one of our schools, where the teachers are saying that, we're being asked to take our kids down to get this fingerprint. And my response to them was, this is not your responsibility, this is a directive from the Board of Education. So I'd just like to clear up that fact to that gentleman, that the teachers are directed to do those kind of things. And as an employee in the district, we have to do what they ask us to do. But now in retrospect, I kind of almost wish that I would have come ahead of time. So I'm going to take that opportunity ahead of time to let all of you know, and parents here also, is that we are also being asked to open up social media accounts. And the social media accounts, I don't know if the consent forms, if the parents know that the consent forms don't match the social media aspect. I know it matches the fact that we can take parent pictures of students, but I don't know if it actually goes to the realm of social media. So to dispel any issues with parents that are in the home now, I would like to address the board in that manner to where we can answer that question, that the consent forms that we have now for social media, for being able to take student pictures on social media, that they are also good. They are good for social media, not just for taking a picture and posting it in the room or posting it on the website. Thank you.
I'm currently a student here. I'm a senior class president. I do a lot here. I buy lunch every day, and through the process they ask me if this is they just ask for my name. When there is a picture of me myself, but for some of my other friends, there aren't pictures of them, so they just have to ask, is this you? If it's a girl's name, like Gianna, if I'm a girl and I go up and I just type in Gianna's code, obviously maybe it's Gianna's girl, I feel like that. So instead of maybe doing the fingerprint, why don't we just update or fix the photo aspect of the lunch so that obviously if there's a picture of me and a boy or someone else is going up saying that this is me, why can't we do that instead? Instead of fingerprint, because I feel like that's a little basic.
I want to thank the attorney for now putting me on the spot and answer all those questions right after 3 minutes I get to look at them now. Thank you, Mr. Bush. First, I'd like to talk about Mr. Mignogne's comment, because I think it's important. Not expecting it, but it's the first I'm hearing that there was concern from the teachers. Again, trying to be transparent, Mr. Mignogne and I meet all the time. Just met last week, he didn't mention a word, so that's something I'm sure he and I will talk about again. But again, first time I'm hearing anything about the teachers having an issue or concern with this. I know the teachers had an issue with, before I got here, with biometric scanning or whatever it was, but not this part of it. And also, just to put you all at ease for the social media accounts, because I guess that's the next thing that's coming up. There is an opt-out at the beginning of the year that has to do with internet. It's a federal bill, so that doesn't count for that since it's web-based. But again, that's off topic, but we did bring it up during a different topic. So I will answer that now. I'm going to try to answer some of the points I just put down here. If I don't answer your question particularly, please contact me, stay after. I mean, again, I don't know what else. There was someone here who said that apologizing is not enough. Working with everyone here to try to get some ideas. I think Ms. Qual, the younger senior president, Ms. Qual, oh, there you are, thank you. With the pictures, that's something we're going to look into. I know there's an issue with the pictures, but I don't know what it was, but that's why the scanners were important. But I think that's a very viable topic. I'm looking at you, looking at the camera, so. But that's an important thing. Again, the rollout occurred, the apologies from me. Again, any prints that are opted out, if you wanted to opt out on those, we could take those off. It's just a biometric scan. It's not really a major issue to do that. Again, this is not regardless of what everyone's saying there, and I appreciate all your concerns, this is not a full fingerprint. This is not trace fingerprint. All the research out there I've also read prior to and after this, obviously in preparation for this, there was a turnout in Englewood when this happened. They've been nothing but successful there. First I want to dispel that it's a print and it's tracking any type of information except the money you put on that account. The server, I apologize if I misspoke and I said the server is secure, meaning it's on their site. This isn't our server. So right now you upload your personal information onto Pay Schools already. It's that same server you upload already. So if you weren't or you were worried about your information already about that, that's a different conversation. But this is the same server. It's not a different server. It's not a universal server. It doesn't have Social Security on there. It doesn't have any of those things. It has your child's name, the numeric code that is created with the print, and it has the amount of money you have on there, whatever you're buying. So that's all that's on that account. So just to dispel that, and I know, again, the fingerprint thing, can you get a biometric, can you get a full print off a biometric print? I don't know, even if you did, what that would get you, except, I'm still trying to figure that out. I mean, I know a lot of people that knows the argument online on the surveys that you guys were doing and all that other stuff. There were some comments on there. I've talked to a lot of people, especially, and there's a gentleman in law enforcement here. I don't know how a partial print could identify anybody unless it is criminal or whatnot. Where again, this database is not for that, so I don't know really where that goes. But it's something I will definitely look. I'm sure our attorney, he's taking copious notes. I'm sure he'll look into it for me. Absolutely not. If your students are not eating here, I have to apologize. I know that would be a question. I have to look into that, if they are scanned or not. I don't have the answer to that, so I'll get that back to you. I'm going to guess that everybody probably is scanned. So as we get the opt-outs, right now we only have 12 opt-outs out of the whole district. So if you haven't done that yet, please do that. Maybe some of the parents have done that, but there's only been, out of all the students so far in district, there's only been 12. And some of those are multiple families. So please let me know.
How do you
Well, you just let your principal know. That was part of the email. Just let your principal know.
Writing?
Or email me. Email. Either way, man. It's fine. As long as your principal knows. We'll make sure that's taken care of.
How do we get confirmation?
Confirmation, I'm sorry? Will we get an email back? Again, it's...
I feel like you're being very nonchalant about something that's serious matter.
I'm not being nonchalant, ma'am. I'm telling you, there is absolutely there's no reason for me to keep a record if you don't want a record on your account. I'm in charge of through FERPA, which is all educational records. I'm in charge of many records for your child, Social Security, your deed or your rent. So I don't think there's ever been an issue with any of that since I've been here for 5 years. So now if I'm telling you, and I can give you an assurance in a letter or whatever that's off there, I don't know how else you want me to tell you that. Just like if you didn't give me a Social Security number for whatever reason, and you said, well, how do I get it off the FERPA record now? I would give you the same assurance. So there's absolutely no reason for me or this district to keep any digital half fingerprint or scan, a biometric scan, if you don't want it on there. There's no reason. So again, I could give you a letter of assurance. I don't know what other assurance you would want. I could probably, obviously, have a conversation moving forward if this is something that we're going to redo with a new set of scans. I don't know what it is. But moving forward, this is the corrective action that has been the recommendation from, again, in conjunction with consultants that run the Department of Agriculture, State Monitor. This is the way we're going to correct some of these issues. It's not a mismanagement issue. I disagree with that. I understand why that was brought up, sir. But again, there's also an element of many of the parents I spoke to at home who, again, don't want to believe that this is an issue on their end as well, where the money that was missing has to do. Now, the one woman that got up with the bullying, that is absolutely being addressed, because there are some students that want to curry favor with friends, and they'll buy a hamburger or a, I keep saying hamburger, I don't know, cookie or whatever it's for. So that definitely does happen. That's something that we're trying to address with the students systematically. I don't really, usually the students don't go up more than once for in grammar school to buy stuff with the scan, but at least the scan knows that your child definitely purchased this. And then we get to the reason why, because the first thing that many of the children that we spoke to with this was, I didn't do this, somebody must have stole my number. And then the parents were like, well, how do you know somebody wasn't looking over his shoulder when he put the number in? There's a lot of different factors that also played into this. And again, this is the only optimal thing that would help know that it's only your child. So that's why it was put in there. I don't know how many students are scanning. I wouldn't know that number off the top of my head. I wouldn't even be able to tell you that. The janitors and aides taking lunch, I'll definitely look into that. It's again, the first I'm hearing of that. They know that that's not permitted. It's not federal, it's against federal law. So that's something now that I will definitely make sure that we investigate. Thank you for bringing that up here. The other Ms. Wall, sorry, I can't tell you two parts. Mentioned salaries for new workers and whatnot, but yes, the salaries for the new workers are something that the board has to budget for in those positions, but that's to put away the food shaming piece. And I don't think, regardless of what system you put in there, that's definitely in the process, because we have to identify students that don't have money before they go up to pay. Okay, and that's not an easy thing. We can sit here and say it is, but it's not an easy thing. And for those of us as parents that aren't going through that, I can tell you the parents that have had children food shamed it's very detrimental to the psyche of a child. So that's something that the board is definitely working on, and that's going to have more personnel anyway, and that's something that Mr. Paladino and I are working on budgeting. But it was a good point. Why can't we just take that money and pay for the meals? Unfortunately, we can't do that. So I did speak to a few parents and some intense conversations regarding this. And I gotta be honest with you, the one thing that I can tell you how to answer it. I will answer and I will try to do it, but it's gonna be very hard to police. Is the snotty finger thing? Okay, the germs. So again, we're trying to teach our students in the grammar schools now to wash their hands when they're done going to the bathroom. Right? The nurses work on that a lot. The teachers work on that. However, you know, when you put in the thing, you're supposed to wash your hands before you go on and after. There are the sanitizers all over, but that might be something that we have to make sure that the new workers wipe after every scanned. That's something we're working on. But that is a very valid point, so that's something that we're also working on. Again, I don't know if I answered anything. Just the last one is about how Board of Education works, which I think most of you probably don't really know the whole thing. Board of Education makes policy and basically oversight to the administrative decisions. It's not micromanaging, it's not daily, day-to-day stuff. They don't tell us what kind of toilet tissue to buy, none of those things, okay? That's basically managerial prerogative. This was working with the state with an audit. It's a little bit more volatile because of the amount of money that we didn't collect and we're still not collecting. So this was something that was a process that was set up through the audit, that if you come next month, hopefully you'll all be here next month, you'll hear the audit finding. That's not going to be favorable to the board itself because of this this problem. So again, as we move this forward, I do apologize for not making sure that this was not. Should have made sure that this was rolled out prior, meaning that you should have been informed. The opt-out versus opt-in, everything that we do in schools that deal with 4,700 students or 4,500 students are all opt-outs. It's more difficult to opt in. So for example, if you don't want your child's picture anywhere, you opt out. If you don't want your child to be talked to by the military, you can opt out. There's no opt-in for those things. So this is just the way the process is education-wise. It just makes it an easier thing, because again, this is what we are going to do moving forward. With the opt-out piece, I really didn't think that we would be ordering cards still, because I really think that those individuals with cards still may have an issue like this. And again, if you go out and you ask for a card instead of the finger scan or the number, again, it's not a threat, but you're basically now, this is the opportunity for you not to have that issue. If you weren't one of those parents that had to pay the arrears, you know, it's easier to sit up here and say, I don't see what the big deal is, but again, we had people in the thousands of dollars that owed money because we were worried about food shaming and those things, and that's all going to stop now with board policies coming through, etc.
I just want to reiterate what Dr. Tomko is saying with respect to student record information. Right, I'm the board attorney, so it's my job to provide advice to the board with respect to how to protect records, you know, when to protect records, what are considered to be student record, what is student record information. Let me just quickly explain it. A fingerprint itself is obviously definitely identifiable information. This is not, as Dr. Tomko said, a fingerprint. Now it is biometric, and I'm not a scientist, I don't know, the technology scientist, I don't know exactly how this works, but whatever the case is, as Dr. Tomko has said, and he doesn't even need to say, this is sort of bedrock school law, basic school law. Every bit of identifiable information regarding a student, okay, and there's a lot that the school district has, whether it's a social security number or a utility bill or a lease or a deed or the fact that your child has brown hair and blue eyes or whatever the case is, information that is arguably, again, I'm not going to get into a discussion about this, I don't know enough about the different aspects of identifiable information, but there's an argument to be made that the information that a school district is required by law to keep is far more sensitive, is far more determinative with respect to information about a child, stuff you would never want someone to get a hold of. That stuff is required by a school district to have by law, by federal and state law, and required by federal and state law. Dr. Tomko referred to FERPA. Okay, FERPA is the federal law to be maintained. Whether it's your child's grades, whether it's your child's skin color, whatever the case is, if a school district has identifiable information about a child and it is required by law to have it, we have to maintain it, we have to secure it. Whether that's in the form of paper, or if it's electronic, or if it's a teacher who knows information about a child's parents' marital status, okay? For example, that is information that if and Mr. Mignon would know this as the association representative, if a teacher were to speak about that, that's a huge problem for us. If a teacher were to email someone on the outside about that or give information to someone about that, that is a huge problem. So much of a problem that, for example, if two kids have an issue with one another, and the parent of one of the children ask for a record with respect to the information, of the incident that occurred. The school district often goes to our office and says, hey, can you take a look at this record and make sure we're providing parent number one information only about parent number one. And we're at the point where we're redacting information about parent, for child number two, because even though the parents didn't know, because their child tells them who they had the fight with or who the incident was with, we have to be so careful. So this district, like every other district in the United States, but I can only speak to New Jersey, has to keep this information to itself. And we take great lengths to do that. And so I just want everybody to, I understand there's a concern about fingerprints because it's a new technology, and this isn't Disney, and we all understand that, but this is information like all the other information that's even more sensitive than that.
If anybody has any questions, please stay after the meeting or email Dr. Tomoko, and we will definitely get back to you with any questions.